Welcome to 30-Minute Reviews. I am Adam. Technical issue aside. So, Crisis on Infinite Earths Hour 2. I'm going to touch briefly on Black Lightning's mid-season finale as well, but let's start out with Hour 2 of Crisis on Infinite Earths. I took notes this time, so that way we don't end up with yesterday where I kind of forgot what I was doing. I had to try and, backtrack on my own, but... So let's talk about where we are. All the Monitor's plans have completely fallen apart at this point. We have no idea what's going on, and what it is, but apparently the Monitor has a new plan. He went back in time, got the Book of Destiny that was not destroyed by Oliver. He used it so that he needs to collect 7 Paragons, which are 7 heroes that embody different things. And then they have to, They have to unite to defeat the Anti-Monitor. So, he knows that Kara Zor-El, Supergirl, is the Paragon of Hope. He knows that, Sarah Lance, the White Canary, is the Paragon of Destiny. He knows that, quote, the Bat of the Future is going to be the Paragon of Courage, and the Paragon of Truth is a Superman from an alternate Earth. So that's what we know. So they split up into teams to go and do things. Iris West, Superman of Earth 38, and Lois of Earth 38 go off to find the other Superman. Meanwhile, Kara and Kate Kane go off to find the Batman. Ray stays behind on the Wave Rider to create a Paragon detector, while Sarah, Barry, and Mia and John Constantine go off to try and revive Oliver using a Lazarus Pit. Now, let's talk about the Lazarus Pit first. I was never a fan of the use of Lazarus Pits on Arrow. I always felt like it was a waste. I felt like it was it cheapened, bringing people back after you kill them. It kind of cheapened it. And then, when they didn't do it for Laurel, it felt like, okay, they're going to move away from that. But it's like, you've resurrected Thea using that. You've resurrected Sarah using that. You've resurrected Roy at some point in the past using a Lazarus Pit. It feels like a waste to kill someone and then, use a Lazarus Pit. Why did they, Roy being resurrected by a Lazarus Pit didn't even need to be addressed. They could have not done that. And then the same way, the question then becomes, from a narrative standpoint, why did we kill the character off? If just to resurrect them later. So it's odd, to say the least. They keep doing it. So now, basically what happens is Mia says, okay, so we're going to use a Lazarus Pit, we're going to bring him back. And Sarah's like, absolutely, we are not. And Barry's like, why? So they go and they're using the Lazarus Pit to bring him back. Now, while this is happening, Kate and Kara go off to Earth 99 to talk to Kevin Conroy's Batman. And really, I really like what they did with Batman here. I'm not the biggest Batman fan, because I feel like Batman as a character is not so much a hero in the same way Superman is, or in the same way The Flash is, or anyone else. I feel like Batman's the epitome of a vigilante, as opposed to a hero. He's doing, and even to an extent, I think the Green Arrow would fall into that same category, because they're not really dealing with any problem that the police themselves can't handle. And he's, at the end of the day, just as dangerous to the well-being of Gotham as a city as any of his villains are. Because his existence indulges the crazy, which is kind of in the DNA of the city of Gotham. So we see this version of Batman in this, where he's killed, and he realizes it's the right thing for him to do, and he goes off and he kills the Joker. He kills who else was shown to be killed? Oh, Riddler. He killed Mr. Freeze, and he killed Superman. There's a nice Dark Knight Returns reference where it's with the line where, what was the line? the world only makes sense if you force it to. And he tries to fight Kara, but Kate saves her life, and ends up killing the Bruce of Earth 99. But it's interesting. I like that they took the time to do that, because you have this multiverse hopping show. You get to use this as a way to show off other characters and show them in ways that we don't ordinarily see. Because they're not going to do that in a big budget movie. That would not be critically well received, and the audiences would hate it. And then they'd be demanding a director's cut in the movie of the sequel so many years later. And you know, it's just nonsense. But in a situation like this, we can do it brief, and you can play on, because we know what Batman is. We can play on that a little bit. It works in this context. So that's what I want to say about Batman. Now, the other thing I want to talk about is the alternate Earth versions of other characters we already have. Like, Sarah has the meta line in the beginning when it's like, okay, we need the Wave Rider, and she's like, that's not going to go over well with my team. I promised our team no more crossovers, which makes sense, considering the last time they did a crossover, Stein died. So it makes sense that they wouldn't want to do anymore, but it's just a meta joke, you know, where there was the same thing last year where they get the call, it's like, you've missed calls from Kara Zor-El, Barry Allen, and Oliver Queen, and then Ray's like, sounds like the annual crossover, and Nate says, hard pass. It's a similar joke to that. But then they go off to, what's it called? They go off to an alternate, I think it was Earth 70-something, or Earth 60-something. I forgot what the Earth designation was. But they go off to that Earth, and they, and Mick's still living on the Wave Rider. So Mick is in the episode. He gets a lot of really funny moments in it, because it's basically just Mick from Earth 1. But you know, slightly different. Now, Earth 16 has been speculated to be what the Arrowverse was originally, because we get that Star City 2049 version of Oliver from Earth 16, and we also get Jonah Hex from Earth 16 in this episode. So it's kind of, you know, designed to be a similar world in a way to, you know, do that. But again, why have Jonah Hex there if it's Jonah Hex from before? Like, the going to Jonah Hex and going to Oliver in Hour 1 from the future, from Legends, it feels like a waste, because it's like, why is he there? I get it's kind of like in Endgame when it's like they use characters they already have to kind of tell the story. It's like, oh, well, who's going to be the guardian of the Soul Stone? Oh, well, let's use, you know, Red Skull. I get that to an extent, but you could have done that scene with a slightly later version of Jonah Hex, so that way he knows who Sarah is, and it would create another level of intrigue around the confrontation. But they didn't do that. There were 3 Joker references in the episode. The Monitor and Lex's plan for the Paragon of Truth is ridiculous. It's like, let's send out, and like, okay, so there are Supermen from all over the multiverse that are referenced. There's one Superman who's killed by Lex, and then, you know, that's on the first Earth they go to. Then there is Smallville Superman who gave up his powers. We'll talk about that in a minute. And then there is the Superman from Superman Returns. And the issue is, why not just gather up the Superman? Like, Lex didn't have a real purpose in this besides to drive the plot. And going along with that, the fight between Routh Superman and Earth 38 Superman feels like a waste of money and time in the episode. You could have been doing other things. Like, it's a cool sequence, and a lot of the fighting is repurposed from Elseworld. It's repurposed from Deegan Superman versus Earth 38 Superman. But I don't think that episode, that nothing was really added in that scene that felt like it was going to be, you know, important. And Lex also felt kind of analogous to the entire situation, because you can omit Lex entirely and tell basically the same story and omit the fight that amounts to nothing. And even if it is John Cryer's Lex, and I do really love John Cryer's Lex. What else do we have here? I think that's all I have for Hour 2. I also want to talk about Black Lightning's mid-season finale. Now, I talked last time about how, like, when you when you do a situation where you have a crossover like this, what a crossover serves to do from the standpoint of the network is we're going to give you a little extra money and you're going to advertise each other. And that's what the crossover is. It's like, if you don't watch Batwoman, like in this episode, you get Luke is in this episode. Luke Fox is in this episode. So he gets a very brief role, but he's in it because he's a series regular on Batwoman. In episode 1, Lena was in it, and Brainiac was in it, and all of these other characters from Supergirl. In the Flash episode, we're going to get Cisco, we're going to get John Wesley Shipp playing the 90s Flash, we're going to get Killer Frost, Elongated Man, and all these other characters. Presumably in Arrow, we're going to have Wild Dog and the Black Canaries. And then in Legends, we're going to have the Legends. So that's what the big difference is here, is that, and like Supergirl to Invasion, and really, that's a poor analogy, because the Supergirl episode of Invasion, quote-unquote, episode, wasn't really that. It wasn't until the very tail end where it kind of tied in. This feels more like the Arrow episode of Invasion, the 100th episode that fell in the middle of the crossover because they did a poor job planning the season out. Where we had to grind it to a halt and tell the story using using mind control or whatever. No, it was like a Matrix they put them into. So, like, what the story is Jennifer is facing a crossroads with this character Odell. I'm way behind on Black Lightning. So she's facing a crossroads with this character Odell. Crisis starts. So the skies turn red. Her powers interact with the antimatter in a very severe way, so she meets two other versions of herself from the multiverse. She meets a version of herself from quote-unquote Earth 1, and she meets a version of herself from quote-unquote Earth 2. I think those are just designations for use on the show. If you want to look at my Twitter account, not on my official, on the show's Twitter account, at 30minreview, I break it down a little bit more in depth there. I think these were just designations for use on Black Lightning, more so than use on, in the multiverse. The wider Arrow multiverse. And she meets these other versions of herself so she can see what happens if she goes to the extreme in either direction. Which is interesting, and it's very well acted by the woman who plays Jennifer, China Anne McClain. She does a tremendous job in this episode, and basically she carries the episode. And when you do something like this, what your goal is to convert people to watch the show in question. Like, your goal is, this is me selling you to watch this show. And it does that very well. It did have a little bit of a lead, and it didn't quite carry over in terms of ratings the numbers from Crisis Part 2. But it did have some, so it may boost the ratings coming out of the mid-season finale, and it may get people to go back and watch it on the CW app. But time will tell. But if you have not, if you, like, this is something where it's like, when Crisis on Earth X came out, I said you can use this as a good jumping on point. If you watch this, you can see if you're interested, you can see what shows you want to watch, from this. So, I feel the same way about this. I feel the same way about this episode of Black Lightning in Season 3. You can use this to see if this is going to be a show you're interested in, because it kind of, to an extent, they understand that, you're not watching this show. A lot of people are going to be watching this only because of Crisis. And the episode title is Earth Crisis. And it was advertised as being somewhat part of Crisis. So they know that's going to be built into what this episode's ratings are. So there's some exposition that for someone who watches the show may seem a little clunky, but for newcomers who are watching this episode and haven't seen anything else from seasons 1 or 2 or 3 up until this point, it's going to help them out to get them on board in the same, and up to speed in a way where it's like, this is what this show is about. This is what we're going to do. And it features very strong acting performances, and it utilizes the multiverse in a very creative way, and I really like what they did. Going forward, the episode does end with the destruction of, I dubbed it Earth 77 because Black Lightning debuted in 1977, and that's the convention they tend to be doing, is that they use, famous comic debuts, famous movie debuts, like Earth 89 was Batman 89. So that's what I went by when I called it Earth 77. but there's no official designation. But it gets destroyed at the end of the episode. It gets wiped out, and we see Jen with the other two Jens. The other two get wiped out by the antimatter wave and vanish. The one from the prime Black Lightning Earth doesn't get destroyed, doesn't die. She doesn't get wiped out by the antimatter wave. Jefferson gets whisked away to what's it called? To the Wave Rider, and we'll see where that picks up tonight on The Flash. Prediction going into the mid-season break of Crisis, because it comes back after Christmas. I think that tonight's going to end with Lila killing the Monitor, like in the comic, and then on top of that, Earth 1's going to be destroyed. Everyone's going to be presumed dead at the end of this episode. And until we come back at the mid-season premiere, there's going to be, everyone's going to be presumed dead. I think that's where we're going to end off. And we'll end off there for the episode, too. Tomorrow we'll be back with an episode about hour 3 of Crisis, and then we will also be back on Thursday. We're not going to do Slacker, we're going to do Shazam instead. We're going to jump into Christmas, and we're going to lead off with Shazam, because it is a Christmas movie in the same way Iron Man 3 is. So we'll be doing Shazam on Thursday, as well as everything else we've been trying to cover up until this point. So until then, have a great rest of your week. 30-Minute Reviews is a production of Multiple World Productions, available wherever you listen to podcasts. 30-Minute Reviews is hosted and produced by Adam Taylor. The opening theme is Beat Epical by Carlos Estella, and the closing theme is Future Bass Uplifting by Alex Cerveza. You can follow Adam on Twitter at AdamTaylor792, as well as this podcast at 30-Minute Review.